Thank you for tuning in to Black News Tonight. I'm Marc Lamont Hill. Tonight, we start with an update on the trial of Kim Potter, the former suburban Minneapolis police officer charged with first and second degree manslaughter for shooting and killing 20-year-old Daunte Wright. Former Brooklyn Center Police Sergeant Mychal Johnson, Potter's supervisor at the time, testified today that he unloaded Potter's gun holster due to concerns that she could possibly injure herself after shooting Wright in the chest, as Wright was trying to drive away from a traffic stop on April 11th. Potter, scheduled to testify in the trial, pleaded not guilty to both manslaughter charges, and as her defense, she says that she mistook her handgun for her taser during the fatal incident. Here with me now to talk more about the Kim Potter trial is attorney, activist, and policy strategist Angelo Pinto. Angelo, thanks for joining me on Black News Tonight. This is such a fascinating case. I need some help unpacking this stuff. First of all, as the trial continues, we're going to hear about something called the spark of life doctrine. It was a doctrine also used in the Derek Chauvin trial. The doctrine is seen as a way to humanize the victim and not portray them as a dead body or as a corpse. Help us understand what it is and if it works well in trials.
I think it really depends on the jury. I think when I think about the spark of life doctrine, and I think some of what you see happening around autopsy photos and the conversation around who Daunte Wright was is an attempt to not simply portray him as an individual whose life had no value. So I think it's going to be tricky. I don't know if, for me, the case is going to be contingent or hinge on those facts. I think what you see happening is fellow officers rallying around Kim Potter to kind of protect her actions and what she claims to be confusion around confusing the taser or the handgun for a taser. And for me, that is where most of the criminal charges will hinge and whether or not the jury feels like she actually did that. So for me, that's what I'm paying closest attention to.
Body camera footage, some of which was shown in court today, it shows Kim Potter being emotional after the shooting. When the jury sees her being upset, emotional after shooting and killing somebody, do you think the jury will respond to that in a way that matters? What kind of impact do you think it's going to have?
I mean, I think it could go either way. I think the jury could look at that and say, feel some kind of connection to her and understand that, she's a human being, she made a mistake, and that could work in her favor. For me, when I look at that footage, it shows negligence. I think it shows that someone knew they did something that was reckless and made a huge error. So for me, it kind of shows and speaks to her culpability. And I also think it speaks to her inability to deal with the gravity of the circumstances. And I think her ability to try or her attempt.
Hold on, Angela. Let me play devil's advocate for a minute, though. If her being upset after killing him looks like she couldn't, what would a person who could properly handle the situation do in response? Would they not cry? Would they be stoic? I mean, what would a more acceptable or favorable, maybe even exculpatory appearance look like?
I think for me, it's someone who takes account of their actions and say, hey, listen, I did something here that I didn't intend on doing. I was attempting to use my taser and I used a handgun. So for me, my sense is that officers' training prepares them for what they use in certain incidents and also prepares them for the aftermath of those incidents. And for me, to see her behave in the way that she did, throwing herself to the ground, I think even at one point suggesting that she may take her own life, exemplifies someone seeing that they made a serious error, but also their inability or unwillingness to be held accountable for that error and deal with it how I would perceive an officer should. And I think the officers surrounding her realized that she was handling things out of the context in which they would even like to see, which is why they responded in the way that they did. And unfortunately, I feel like the first thing they told her to do was get on the phone with the union. because they realized she made a severe error and that her actions moving forward had to happen in such a way to protect herself, and I don't think she did that.
Police Sergeant Mychal Johnson, who was on the scene of the shooting, says that he was holding Wright's arm to prevent him from driving away when Potter started shouting Taser before shooting Wright. What do you make of that?
I think in this moment, what he's attempting to say is that the car was a deadly weapon, and that Daunte Wright was trying to flee the scene. And as a result, Potter had the right to use deadly force. So I think he's trying to create and paint circumstances that showed that what Officer Potter did was not wrong, was not negligent, was not incorrect. But for me, what it speaks to is the inability of officers to meet a particular set of circumstances in a way that doesn't require deadly force and keep someone alive. And I think they didn't do that. I think you encounter individuals, or officers encounter individuals, who will move in a variety of ways, and that it is the officer's responsibility to keep them alive when they are not being met with deadly force. And I don't think that happened in this set of circumstances.
Now, this week we have heard emotional testimony from Daunte Wright's mother. We've also heard from Daunte Wright's girlfriend. She was in the car with him. We also heard from several officers who were on the scene. What were some of the things that stood out to you in this testimony, this week of intense testimony?
I mean, I think, one of the key things is always hearing from someone's mother. I think when we're looking at trials, oftentimes we're saying, is Officer Potter guilty? But there's a real life impact, a real life consequence on families, on communities, when someone is murdered, when someone's life is taken at the hands of police officers or by anyone else. And I think Daunte's mother speaks to that. I think his girlfriend's testimony speaks to the circumstances of the incident, and how she felt and how she was alarmed. And it gives us some sense of how Daunte would have responded, or how any teenager or 20-year-old might respond when they find themselves in this circumstances. And I think it gives Daunte a better footing into understanding what Daunte experienced. And I think even her saying that she called Daunte's mom after the incident and showed her his body, or showed what was going on, kind of speaks to her being in disarray and unable to properly figure out how to deal with those set of circumstances, which allows us, or at least allows me, to say that this is probably what also happened with Daunte in this set of circumstances. He was met by police officers, was probably alarmed, didn't know exactly what to do, but didn't want to be arrested, and push the car into gear, which kind of caused some other things to play out.
Angelo, thanks so much for joining us on Black News Tonight. Your analysis is very helpful as we make sense of everything that happened this week, and we'll keep in conversation with you because we got to figure this thing out. All right, let's move on to another story. A mixed response from the Supreme Court regarding a controversial abortion law in Texas. As we've reported here on BNT, the state law known as SB 8 allows members of the public to sue doctors, clinics, or anybody else suspected of being involved in carrying out an abortion in Texas after 6 weeks of gestation. Now, on Friday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that abortion care providers will be allowed to file legal challenges against what amounts to a nearly complete ban of abortion in Texas. But the court also said that the law, as written, would stand. We'll keep you posted with the latest battles over reproductive rights across the country as they continue to unfold. Former Denver Broncos wide receiver Demaryius Thomas has passed away. The 33-year-old football star was found dead at his home in Roswell, Georgia, Thursday night. According to police, preliminary reports indicate Thomas's death may have stemmed from a medical issue. Thomas's first cousin, Latanya Bonsignor, says that Thomas had been suffering from seizures for more than a year. We're sending our thoughts, we're sending our prayers to his loved ones. Federal financial aid has been reinstated at Morris Brown College after nearly 2 decades. In 2002, the college lost its accreditation due to debt and financial mismanagement, resulting in the school becoming non-eligible for federal funding. The president of the college released a statement saying that they are, quote, elated about the reinstatement of the federal financial aid program. The Atlanta-based college recently received accreditation from the Transnational Association of Christian Colleges and Schools. Now, Morris Brown College is the first college in Georgia to be owned and operated by African Americans, and we certainly salute them for getting stronger, for getting bigger, and for doing the mission that HBCUs have done since the very beginning. Shout out to Morris Brown. Much love, much respect, much support. All right, everybody, we want to make sure you join the conversation. We want to hear from you. Head over to our BNC Instagram and Twitter pages to let us know how you feel. Also, visit our website, bnc.tv, and subscribe to our YouTube page to check out clips from the show.